Hello everybody, this is Refresh, and I'm here to bring you a battle between all 5 Core Set 2019 Planeswalker decks from Magic the Gathering. In particular, because each of the decks are monocolored and we're going to be playing them all simultaneously, I will be playing using the Star variant of Magic, and in that variant of Magic, each color is trying to take out its 2 enemy colors. So we are seated in Wooburg here, which is white, blue, black, red, and green, and each player will be trying to take out the 2 players that are opposite them. So white is trying to take out black and red, blue is trying to take out red and green, black is trying to take out green and white, and red is trying to take out white and blue. Should those 2 players be taken out, then that remaining color wins, regardless if their allies are still in the game. To begin, each color will roll 2 dice to see who goes first. We'll start with Ajani, who rolls a 5. Tezzeret rolls a 5. Liliana rolls a 5. Sarkhan rolls a 10. And Vivian rolls a 12. So Vivian will be the first player. Vivian will draw 7. She gets a Forest, Gaspark Twins, Vivian's Jaguar, Forest, and Colossal Majesty. This is not a great hand, however, it is an acceptable hand with a turn 3 play, so we will keep this hand. Ajani draws a Plains, Oresco Swiftclaw, Militia Burglar, Silverbeak Glyphon, Plains, and Plains. This is a pretty aggressive start, and I think this is where Ajani wants to be, so we will keep this hand. Tezzeret draws a Skyscanner, Uncomfortable Chill, Island, and Dwindle, and Gearsmith Guardian. This is a slower hand, but it is a keepable one, so we will do so. Liliana draws a Sovereign Spite, a Swamp, Liliana Spoils, Murder, Diregraph Ghoul, and a Swamp. This is also a keepable hand, so we will keep this. Sarkhan draws a Sarkhan's Whelp, Demanding Dragon, Mountain, Fiery Finish, Hostile Minotaur, Mountain, and Mountain. This is not great, but again, we have a 3-drop play, and the game looks like it's going to be a bit slower, so this is also a keepable hand, and we will do so. Because this is multiplayer, every player will draw on their first turn. Vivian will draw a card, which is a Scholar Wolf, a 5-mana 3/3, which will let us look through the top cards of the deck to see if we can get any more cards. Vivian will play a Forest, and Vivian will pass the turn. Ajani will draw a card. It is a Luminous Bonds. Ajani will play a Plains, and Ajani will pass the turn. Tezzeret will draw a card, which is a Tezzeret's Gatebreaker. Tezzeret will play an Island, and Tezzeret will pass the turn. Liliana will draw a card, which is a Blood Divination. Liliana will play a Swamp. She'll tap the Swamp and play a Diregraph Ghoul, which will enter the battlefield tapped. It is a 2/2 for 1 mana, and a zombie. And then Liliana will pass the turn. Sarkhan will draw, and draws a Mountain. Sarkhan will play that Mountain, and then Sarkhan will pass the turn. We are back to Vivian. Vivian will draw a card, and it is a Forest. Vivian will play the Forest, and then Vivian will pass the turn. Ajani will draw a card, which is a Meteor Golem. Ajani will play a Plains, and then Ajani will tap both the Plains, and then play a Oreskos Swiftclaw, which is a 3/1, and then Ajani will pass the turn. Tezzeret will draw, drawing an Island. Tezzeret will play the next Island, and then Tezzeret will pass the turn. Liliana will untap. Liliana will draw, drawing a Walking Corpse. Liliana will play a Swamp. Liliana will attack Vivian with the Diregraph Ghoul for 2. Vivian cannot block, will take 2 and go to 18. On her second main phase, Liliana will tap both Swamps and play a Walking Corpse, which is a 2/2, and then Liliana will pass the turn. Sarkhan will draw and gets a Mountain. Sarkhan will play a Mountain, and then Sarkhan will pass the turn. Vivian will draw and gets an Ursine Champion, and then Vivian will play a Forest. Vivian will tap all 3 forests and play Vivian's Jaguar, which is a 3-mana 3/2 with Reach, and can be returned from the graveyard to the hand if Vivian controls a Vivian Planeswalker. And then Vivian will pass the turn. Ajani will untap. Ajani will draw. Ajani draws a Silverbeak Griffin. Ajani will play a Plains, And Ajani will go to the attack step and will attack Sarkhan for 3. Sarkhan cannot block, will take 3 and go to 17. On his second main phase, Ajani will tap all 3 planes and play the Militia Bugler. It is a 2/3 human soldier with vigilance, and when Militia Bugler enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature with power 2 or less from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Here are the top 4 cards. We have a Herald of Faith, a Luminous Bonds, a Sarah Guardian, and Ajani's Pridemate. Ajani's Pridemate is the only card that can be put into his hand, so he will. We will shuffle these cards and then put them on the bottom. And then Ajani will pass turn. Tezzeret will draw. Tezzeret gets an island. Tezzeret will play an island, and then Tezzeret will tap everything and play a Sky Scanner. It is a 1/1 artifact creature Thopter with flying. When Sky Scanner enters the battlefield, draw a card. So Tezzeret will draw another card, which is another island. And then Tezzeret will pass the turn. Liliana will untap. Liliana will draw. She gets a swamp. She will play the swamp. And Liliana will attack Vivian with 1 Diagraph Ghoul. Vivian will decline to block and will take 2, go into 16. And Liliana will pass the turn. Sarkhan draws a card, gets a mountain. Sarkhan will play a mountain. Sarkhan will tap all 3 and play Sarkhan's Whelp. It is a 2/2 dragon with flying, and whenever you activate an ability of a Sarkhan Planeswalker, Sarkhan with Whelp deals 1 damage to any target, and then Sarkhan will pass the turn. Vivian untaps. Vivian draws and gets a forest. Vivian will play that forest. Vivian will tap 2 mana and play an Ursine Champion, which is a 2/2. And for 6 mana, Ursine Champion gets +3/+3 and becomes a Bear Berserker until end of turn. Activate this ability only once each turn. Vivian will then attack Tezzeret with Vivian's Jaguar for 3. Tezzeret will decline to block and will take 3 to go to 17. Vivian will pass the turn. Ajani untaps. Ajani draws and gets a Cavalry Drillmaster. Ajani will play the planes. Ajani will tap both planes and play a Cavalry Drillmaster. It is a 2/1 human knight. When Cavalry Drillmaster enters the battlefield, target creature gains +2/+0 and first strike until end of turn. That creature will be Oreskos Swiftclaw, making it a 5/1 first striker. And then Ajani will attack Liliana with the Oreskos Swiftclaw, and then will attack Tezzeret with the Militia Bugler at a 2/3 and a 5/1 respectively. Liliana will tap 3 swamps and cast Murder, targeting the Oreskos Swiftclaw. Ajani has no response. The Oreskos Swiftclaw dies. Sarkhan will decline to block and take 2, going to 15. On Ajani's second main step, Ajani will tap both planes and play a Silverbeak Griffin, and then Ajani will pass the turn. Tezzeret untaps. Tezzeret draws. He gets a Field Creeper. Tezzeret will play an island, and then Tezzeret will tap 4 mana and play Tezzeret's Gatebreaker. It is an artifact, and when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a blue or artifact card from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You can also pay 5 and a blue, tap it, sacrifice the Gatebreaker, and your creatures you control can't be blocked this turn. We're going to look at the top 5 cards. We have a Tezzeret Strider, a Gearsmith Guardian, and a Scholar of the Stars. We can put any of these 3 into our hands, and of them we will want a Scholar of the Stars to get the blue going on the Gearsmith Guardian over here. And then we will shuffle these and put them on the bottom of the deck. And then Tezzeret will pass the turn. Liliana untaps. Liliana draws, and she gets a Strangling Spores. Liliana will play a Swamp. Then Liliana will tap all 4 and play Liliana Spoils. It is a 4 mana sorcery that says target opponent draws a card. Liliana will target Ajani, and then it says look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a black card among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. The top part will resolve first. Ajani will discard the Meteor Golem. Liliana will look at the top 5 cards. Our options are Swamp, Liliana the Necromancer, Swamp, Swamp, and Swamp. It's pretty clear that Liliana the Necromancer is the only choice, and probably the best choice. And then we'll put the 4 swamps on the bottom of your deck. And then Liliana will pass the turn. Sarkhan untaps. Sarkhan draws and gets a Goblin Motivator. Sarkhan will play a mountain. Sarkhan will then tap 4 mountains and play a hostile Minotaur and enters the battlefield with haste. Sarkhan will pass the turn. Vivien untaps. Vivien draws. She gets an Elvish Rejuvenator. Vivien will play a forest. Vivien will tap 5 mana and play the Scala Wolf. It is a 3/3, and like the others, it will let Vivien look at the top 5 cards and choose a green card from among them and put them in her hand. Vivien draws a Declare Dominance, a forest, a Rabid Bite, and a forest. Vivien will take the Declare Dominance, shuffle the rest, and put it on the bottom of her deck. And then Vivien will pass the turn. Ajani untaps. Ajani draws and gets a Cavalry Drillmaster. Ajani will play Ajani's Pride Mate and a second Silverbeak Griffin. And Ajani will attack Sarkhan with one of the Silverbeak Griffins. Sarkhan will opt not to block and take 2 damage to go to 13. And then Ajani will pass the turn. Tezzeret will untap. Tezzeret will draw a card. It is an island. Tezzeret will play the island, and then Tezzeret will tap everything and play the Gearsmith Guardian. It is a 3/5 for 5 mana artifact creature construct, and it gets +2/+0 as long as you control a blue creature. Tezzeret does not right now, so it is just a 3/5, and then Tezzeret will pass the turn. Liliana will untap. Liliana will draw. She gets a Tattered Mummy. Liliana will pay 2 mana and play the Tattered Mummy. It is a 1/2 Zombie Jackal. When Tattered Mummy dies, each opponent loses 2 life. And then Liliana will pass the turn. Sarkhan untaps. Sarkhan draws, and Sarkhan gets a Sarkhan's Dragonfire. It says Sarkhan's Dragonfire deals 3 damage to any target, and then look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a red card from among them and put it into your hand, the rest of the bottom in your library in a random order. Sarkhan will play a mountain. Sarkhan will spend 5 mana, and Sarkhan will play the Demanding Dragon. It is a 5/5 flying dragon. When Demanding Dragon enters the battlefield, it deals 5 damage to target opponent unless that player sacrifices a creature. And we will pick Ajani as the opponent. Ajani will sacrifice the Cavalry Drillmaster. Sarkhan will attack Tezzeret with the Sarkhan's Whelp for 2. Tezzeret will choose not to block, will take 2, and go to 15. Sarkhan passes turn. Vivien untaps. Vivien draws and gets a forest. Vivien will play a forest. Vivien will pay 3 mana and play Colossal Majesty. It is an enchantment, and it says at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. This is not the case right now. And then Vivien will spend 3 more mana and then play Elvish Rejuvenator. It is a 1/1, and it says when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them onto the battlefield tapped and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. We'll look at the top 5. We have a forest, Colossal Dreadmaw, and Bristling Boar. We'll take the forest and put it into the battlefield tapped. We'll shuffle the rest and put it on the bottom. Then Vivien will pass the turn. Ajani untaps. Ajani draws and gets a Court Cleric. And then Ajani will spend 3 mana and play Luminous Bonds, targeting Sarkhan's Demanding Dragon. Sarkhan's Demanding Dragon has been luminously bonded. And then Ajani will attack Sarkhan with both of the Silverbeak Griffins. Sarkhan cannot block, will take 4 and go to 9. And then on the second main phase, Ajani will tap the plains and play a Court Cleric, which is a 1/1 human cleric with lifelink, and it gets +1/+1 as long as you control an Ajani Planeswalker. And then Ajani will pass the turn. Tezzeret untaps. Tezzeret draws and gets a Meteor Golem. Tezzeret will play another land. Tezzeret will tap 4, play Skull of the Stars. When it enters the battlefield, if you control an artifact, draw a card. Tezzeret draws a card, a Dwindle. Then Tezzeret will pay 2 more and play a Field Creeper. The Gearsmith Guardian is now a 5/5, and Tezzeret will pass the turn. Liliana untaps. Liliana draws and gets a Skymarch Bloodletter. And as much as Liliana wants to cast spells right now, Liliana needs to hold up some defenses against Vivian in particular, and Liliana will pass the turn. Sarkhan untaps. Sarkhan draws, getting a Kargan Dragonrider. Sarkhan will play a Mountain, and Sarkhan will tap 5 mana and will cast Sarkhan Dragonfire on one of the Silverbeak Griffins, dealing it 3 damage, and then Sarkhan will look at the top 5 cards of his library and reveal a red card from among them and put it into his hand and put the rest on the bottom of his library in a random order. Ajani loses a Silverbeak Griffin, goes to the graveyard. Sarkhan will look at the top 5 cards. We have a Shock, a Mountain, a Sarkhan's Whelp, and a Thud. Sarkhan will take the Whelp, and then Sarkhan will shuffle the rest and put it on the bottom of the library. In his second main phase, Sarkhan will tap the Mountain and will play a Goblin Motivator, and then Sarkhan will pass the turn. Vivian untaps. Vivian will draw a card. It is a Forest. Vivian will play the Forest, and then Vivian will play the Gasbark Twins, which is a 7/7, and then Vivian will pass the turn. Ajani untaps. Ajani draws. Gets a Plains. Ajani will play the Plains. Ajani will attack Liliana with the Silverbeak Griffin. Liliana cannot block, will take 2 and go to 18. And Ajani will pass the turn. Tezzeret untaps. Tezzeret will draw. He gets a Dwindle. Tezzeret will play the Island. And Tezzeret will tap 3 mana and cast Dwindle on the Gasbark Twins. Dwindle says, enchanted creature gets -6/-0, and when enchanted creature blocks, destroy it. The Gasbark Twins is now a 1/7, and then Tezzeret will pass the turn. Liliana draws. She gets a Demon of Catastrophes. Liliana will tap 4 mana and play the Demon of Catastrophes. It is a 6/6 demon, and it has flying and trample, and as additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice a creature. Liliana will sacrifice the Tattered Mummy, and when it dies, each opponent will lose 2 life. That is white and green. Ajani loses 2 life to go to 18. Vivian loses 2 life to go to 14. And then Liliana will pass the turn. Sarkhan untaps. Sarkhan draws and gets a Kargan Dragonrider. Sarkhan will attack Tezzeret with the Sarkhan's Whelp. Tezzeret chooses not to block, will take 2 and go to 13. Sarkhan will then cast a Kargan Dragonrider with Sarkhan's Whelp. The Kargan Dragonrider is a human warrior as long as you control a dragon. Kargan Dragonrider has flying, we control the demanding dragon, and it is also a 2/2. And then Tezzeret will pass the turn. Vivian untaps. Vivian draws and gets a Forest. Vivian will play a Forest. Vivian will tap 5 mana and cast Declare Dominance on the Scala Wolf, making it a 6/6, and all creatures able to block it must do so this turn. And then Vivian will attack Liliana. Liliana is forced to attack and will block it with all of her creatures. Vivian will order the damage first to the Demon of Catastrophes, then the Walking Corpse, and then the Digraph Ghoul. The Demon of Catastrophes will die. The Scala Wolf will also die. And Vivian will also play a Forest, and then Vivian will pass the turn. Ajani untaps. Ajani draws and gets a Plains. Ajani will pay 2 mana and play the Cavalry Drillmaster. When it enters the battlefield, target creature will gain +2/+0 and first strike. That's going to be the Silverbeak Griffin, which Ajani will use to attack Tezzeret. Tezzeret will chump with a Kargan Dragonrider. The Kargan Dragonrider will die, and Ajani will pass the turn. Tezzeret untaps. Tezzeret draws and gets a Riddlemaster Sphinx. Tezzeret will tap 6 mana and play the Riddlemaster Sphinx. It is a 5/5 Sphinx creature with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, you may return target creature and opponent controls to its owner's hand. Tezzeret will return the Hostile Minotaur to Sarkhan's hand. Sarkhan picks up the Hostile Minotaur. Then Tezzeret will attack Sarkhan with the 5/5 Gearsmith Guardian. Sarkhan will block with the Goblin Motivator. The Goblin Motivator will die. And then Tezzeret will pass the turn. Liliana untaps. Liliana draws. She gets a swamp. Liliana will play the swamp. Liliana will tap 3 and play the Sky March Bloodletter. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent will lose 1 life and she'll gain 1 life. She'll choose Ajani to lose a life and she'll gain a life going to 19. Ajani loses a life and goes to 17. And then Liliana will pass the turn. Sarkhan untaps. Sarkhan draws, gets a lightning strike. Sarkhan will tap all of his mana and play Fiery Finish, which does 7 damage to target creature, targeting Tezzeret's Riddlemaster Sphinx. Tezzeret loses the Riddlemaster, and Sarkhan will pass the turn. Vivien untaps. And then I'm going to try something fancy, and if this cannot be done, then please let me know in the comments. But before upkeep, Vivien will tap all 6 mana, making the Ursine Champion a 5/5 Bear Berserker. And then upkeep will begin, Colossal Majesty will trigger, and Vivien will draw 1 card. And then for her draw phase, she'll draw another card. She draws a Forest in an Oaken form. Vivien will tap 3 mana and put the Oaken form on the Ursine Champion, making it a 8/8, and Vivien will attack Tezzeret. Tezzeret will block with the Field Creeper, which will die. And then Vivien will pass the turn. Ajani untaps. Ajani draws, gets a Militia Bugler. Ajani will tap 3 mana and play the Militia Bugler. Ajani will look at the top 4 cards of his deck and will draw a Mighty Leap, a Plains, an Inspired Charge, and Ajani's Pridemate. The only card that Ajani can actually draw is the Ajani's Pridemate, so he will, and he'll put that into his hand. He'll shuffle the remaining cards and then put them in the bottom of his library. On his second main phase, Ajani will tap 2 more Plains and play another Ajani's Pridemate, and then Ajani will attack Sarkhan with 1 of the Militia Buglers. Sarkhan will take 2 and go to 7, and then Ajani will pass the turn. Tezzeret untaps. Tezzeret draws and gets an island. Tezzeret will play the island. Tezzeret will tap everything except for 1 and play a Meteor Golem. It is a 3/3 artifact creature golem, and when it enters the battlefield, destroy target non-land permanent and opponent controls. Tezzeret will target the Ursine Champion. Vivien has no response, will lose the Ursine Champion and the Oaken form. Tezzeret will attack Vivien with the Gearsmith Guardian and will attack Sarkhan with the Scholar of Stars. Vivien will block the Gearsmith Guardian with the Elvish Rejuvenator. Sarkhan will trade a Whelp for the Scholar of Stars. Sarkhan loses the Scholar of Stars, and then Sarkhan will pass the turn. Liliana untaps. Liliana draws and gets a Tattered Mummy. Liliana will play the Tattered Mummy as a 1/2, and then Liliana will pass the turn. Sarkhan will untap. Sarkhan will draw. He gets a mountain. Sarkhan will play the mountain. Sarkhan will tap 2, play a Kargan Dragon Rider, and then tap 4 and play a Hostile Minotaur, and then Sarkhan will pass the turn. Vivien untaps. Vivien draws and gets an aggressive Mammoth, and will tap 8 mana and play the aggressive Mammoth. It is an 8/8 with Trample, and other creatures you control have Trample, which means that the Gaspark Twins and the Jaguar also has Trample right now. And then Vivien will attack Tezzeret with the Jaguar. Tezzeret will decline to block and will take 3 to go to 10, and Vivien will pass the turn. Ajani untaps. Ajani draws, gets a Plains, will hold the Plains in his hand. Ajani will attack Liliana with the Silverbeak Griffin. Liliana will take 2 and go to 17, and Ajani will pass the turn. Tezzeret untaps. Tezzeret draws and gets a Meteor Golem. Tezzeret will play the Meteor Golem and will target the aggressive Mammoth. The aggressive Mammoth dies. Tezzeret will attack Vivien with just the Meteor Golem. Vivien takes 3 and goes to 11. Tezzeret will pass the turn. Liliana untaps. Liliana draws. She gets a swamp. Liliana will play the swamp. Liliana will pay 4 mana and cast Blood Divination. It is a sorcery. It says, as an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature. She'll sacrifice a Tattered Mummy, and then draw 3 cards. The Tattered Mummy will cause each opponent to lose 2 life. That is Vivian and Ajani. Ajani loses 2 and goes to 15. Vivian loses 2 and goes to 9. Liliana will draw 3 cards. She gets a swamp, and an Horizon Gorgon. Then Liliana will pass the turn. Sarkhan untaps. Sarkhan draws, gets a mountain. Sarkhan will hold the mountain. Sarkhan will not attack, and will pass the turn. Vivian untaps. Vivian draws. She gets a Titanic Growth, and then Vivian passes the turn. Ajani untaps. Ajani draws, gets a Rustwing Falcon. Ajani attacks Liliana with the Silverbeak Griffin. Liliana takes 2 and goes to 15. Ajani plays the Rustwing Falcon, and Ajani passes turn. Tezzeret untaps. Tezzeret draws, gets an island. Tezzeret casts Dwindle on the hostile Minotaur, making it a 0/3 that will get destroyed if it blocks. Tezzeret casts Dwindle on the Vivian's Jaguar, making it a 0/3 if it blocks. Then Tezzeret will play an island and will attack Vivian with 2 Meteor Golems and Sarkhan with 1 Gearsmith Guardian. Vivian will block both Meteor Golems with the dwindled creatures. They will be sacrificed and die. Sarkhan will block with the Kargan Dragon Rider, and it will die. And then Sarkhan will cast Lightning Strike on the Gearsmith Guardian to finish it off. The Gearsmith Guardian dies, and then Sarkhan will pass the turn. Liliana untaps. Liliana draws. She gets a swamp. She'll play the swamp. She now has 7 swamps. Liliana will attack Vivian with 1 Walking Corpse. Vivian takes 2 and goes to 7. Liliana will tap 3 and play an Arisen Gorgon. It is a 3/3 for 3 mana, a zombie Gorgon, and it has Death Touch as long as you control a Liliana Planeswalker. And Liliana will pass the turn. Sarkhan untaps. Sarkhan draws a mountain, and Sarkhan will pass the turn. Vivian draws an Ursine Champion. Vivian will play the Ursine Champion, and Vivian will pass the turn. Ajani untaps. Ajani draws a Plains. Ajani will attack Sarkhan with both Militia Buglers, and will attack Liliana with the Silverbeak Griffin. Sarkhan will block one of the Militia Buglers with the hostile Minotaur, and the Minotaur will die, returning the Dwindle. Sarkhan takes 2 damage from the remaining Militia Bugler, going to 5. Liliana will tap 4 and play Strangling Spores, targeting the Silverbeak Griffin, giving it -3/-3. The Silverbeak Griffin dies, and Ajani will pass the turn. Tezzeret untaps. Tezzeret draws and gets a Snapping Drake. Tezzeret will tap 6 and sacrifice Tezzeret's Guardian, and now Tezzeret's creatures cannot be blocked this turn. Tezzeret will attack both Meteor Golems at Sarkhan. Sarkhan cannot block and will perish, dying. And then Tezzeret will pass the turn. Liliana untaps. Liliana draws and gets a swamp. Liliana will play the swamp. Liliana will pay 5 and play Liliana the Necromancer, and it will enter the battlefield with 4 loyalty counters. Liliana will -1 to go to 3 to return a Demon of Catastrophes to her hand, and then Liliana will pass the turn. Vivian untaps. Vivian draws and gets a forest. Vivian will use the Ursine Champion trick again to make it a 5/5 and draw on upkeep to get a forest, then draw again to get a Vivian's Jaguar. Vivian will play a land, will tap 3 to play Vivian's Jaguar, and then Vivian will pass the turn. Ajani draws and gets a Plains. Ajani will attack Liliana's Planeswalker with both Militia Buglers, both Pridemates, and the Drill Master. Lily will block one of the Buglers with the Gorgon, and will trade the Ghouls for both Pridemates, and will also trade the Bloodletter for the Cavalry Drill Master. And Liliana the Necromancer will take 2 to go to 1. And Liliana will lose the Walking Corpse, the Diagraph Ghoul, and the Skymarch Bloodletter. Ajani will lose 2 Pridemates, the Bugler, and the Drill Master. And then Ajani will pass the turn. Tezzeret untaps. Tezzeret draws and gets a Tezzeret Strider. Tezzeret will pay 4 and play a Snapping Drake, and then will pay 3 for the Strider, and then Tezzeret will pass the turn. Liliana will untap. Liliana will draw a Tattered Mummy. Liliana will play Tattered Mummy, and then Liliana will pay 4, playing the Demon of Catastrophes, to sacrifice the Tattered Mummy, which will cause Vivian and Ajani to lose 2 life each. Ajani goes to 13, Vivian goes to 5, and then Liliana will tick up Liliana to 2 loyalty and cause Ajani to lose 2 life. Ajani goes to 11, and then Liliana will pass the turn. Vivian untaps, will use the Ursine Champion's ability to pump it before upkeep, and then we'll draw a card during upkeep, and we'll draw another card, and then we'll play a forest. Vivian will tap both of the forests to play Rabid Bite, causing Vivian's Ursine Champion to hit the Meteor Golem, killing the Meteor Golem. Meteor Golem goes down, and then Vivian will pass the turn. Ajani draws. Ajani will pay 2 mana and play the Silver-Beaked Griffin, and Ajani will pass the turn. Tezzeret untaps. Tezzeret draws, gets a Pendulum of Patterns. Tezzeret will pay 2 mana and play the Pendulum of Patterns, which will get Tezzeret 3 life to go back up to 13. And then Tezzeret will attack Vivian with the whole team. Vivian will block the Tezzeret Strider with the Ursine Champion, and the Snapping Drake with the Jaguar. Tezzeret will spend 3 mana and cast Uncomfortable Chill. Creatures your opponents control gain -2/-0 until end of turn. We'll draw a card off of that, which is a Divination. That makes the Ursine Champion a 0/2 and the Vivian's Jaguar a 1/2. Vivian will spend 2 mana to cast Titanic Growth on the Jaguar, making it a 5/6. The Snapping Drake will die. The Ursine Champion will die. Vivian will take 4 damage and go to 1. On Tezzeret's second main phase, he'll tap 3 and cast Divination to draw 2 cards. He draws another island and a Skilled Animator, and Tezzeret will pass the turn. Liliana untaps. Liliana draws and gets a Skymarch Bloodletter. Liliana will pay 3 mana and play the Skymarch Bloodletter, causing her to gain 1 life to go up to 16 and causing Ajani to lose 1 life. Ajani loses 1 life and goes to 10. Liliana will attack Ajani with the Demon of Catastrophes. Ajani takes 6 and goes to 4. Liliana will tick up herself to cause Ajani to lose 2 more life. Ajani loses 2 more life to go to 2. And then Liliana will tap 2 more mana to cast Sovereign's Bite, causing Ajani to lose 3 life and gaining 3 her life herself, taking her up to 19. Ajani perishes, and Liliana will pass the turn. Vivian untaps. Vivian draws and gets a Druid of the Cowl. Vivian will cast the Colossal Dreadmaw, Druid of the Cowl, and Vivian will pass the turn. Tezzeret untaps. Tezzeret draws, gets a Manolith. Tezzeret will cast the Skilled Animator. It is a 1/3 human artificer. When Skilled Animator enters the battlefield, target artifact you control becomes an artifact creature with base power and toughness 5/5 for as long as Skilled Animator remains on the battlefield. He'll choose the Pendulum of Pattern. It becomes a 5/5. And then Tezzeret will attack with everybody at Vivian. Vivian blocks the 5/5 with the Pendulum, the Meteor Golem with the Jaguar, and the Tezzeret Strider with the 1/3, takes 1 damage. Everything dies except for the Sky Scanner, and the Sky Scanner deals 1 damage to Vivian to finish her off, resulting in a joint victory for black and blue. Tezzeret and Liliana win the day. We end with a joint victory for Tezzeret and Liliana because of the rules of the Star variant, and that is our battle between the Core Set 2019 Planeswalker decks. Let me know what you thought about the games in the comments below. Let me know if I made any play errors or rule errors as well, then I'll try to improve on those in future videos. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more such videos, hit subscribe. Next time I'll be pitting these 5 decks up against the Face the Hydra Challenge deck, and we'll see how well they do. Until then, this was Refresh, and thanks for watching.